Hey there, friendlies. How's up? Welcome to the 1st of June episode of the Beer Blaze and Bushcraft live stream here at Rain Dance Bushcraft on the web. Um, let's get the housekeeping out of the way first. If you're watching us time shifted, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. If you are watching me right now, I appreciate that as well. Say hi in the side chat. I see that we've already got some people saying hi in the side chat. We got Tenenbaum in the house. Nice to see you. Excuse me. We have Simon Forger. How's it going, monsieur? We got Martin. That's Mr. Pine Martin, who is familiar to everyone who's been watching me for a long time, both on screen and in the side chat. We got Russell from Raspberry Rock. Always nice to see you. He doesn't watch my actual videos, but he's very good at appearing on my live streams. Mark Pootmans, how is it going, mister? I do believe I'm going to bottle down this. No, maybe not. Small dram. Okay, that's actually a generous dram. But I never pour back into the bottle. I'm afraid of contaminating. Actually, Raspberry said something very interesting right there. Hey, Ian, the web lord, how's it going? Russell says, when you start doing videos again, maybe I'll watch them. Yes, I know. I'm living a perfect storm of crap right now. Aside from not really being able to go anywhere because I'm in a red zone, my editing machine died and corrupted my video library. So when I get a new machine, what I have to do is try to resurrect my video library because I lost a lot of stuff that hadn't been edited yet. But I'm optimistic. If you want to know what I'm drinking tonight, it's not beer because I'm still sort of taking a break from the beer. I'm having the classic latte by Bruichladdich, which for under $100 is one of my favorites. It's not peated. I'm usually a peat head. There we go. They see now it's in focus. This is one of my favorite distilleries. They make the mighty Octomore, which I cannot afford anymore. Grace is here on a different account, so for future, if you guys see M. Bergen, that's our friend Grace. Nice to see you. Okay. If I'm not my my usual bubbly self, am I ever a bubbly self? Anyways, I just before getting online here, went and bought a few groceries, some fruit for the kids for lunch tomorrow. And on the CBC, they were interviewing some First Nations elders about those 215 bodies they found out west. And anyways, I'm not going to get political here, but I'm angry. I'm so damn angry. So ashamed and so angry. But hey, we're going to move on. What I wanted to talk about tonight was food prep for the camping season. Because not everyone does the same thing. I have seen many videos, and a lot of people dry stuff, like a lot of people. It seems that if you're heavily into backpacking or paddling, then there's a lot of drying stuff or a lot of trail mix, a lot of nuts and things that that you can pack real small. Whereas a lot of real dedicated bushcrafters, they want a nice big steak. Yeah, they'll hike 5 miles in. I don't know why I just said miles. It just sounds so much more sort of. It rolls better than 5 kilometers, but anyways, they'll hike a big steak or a rack of ribs or a pack of bacon into the backwoods. But if you're going for like 5 days, it seems that dried or smoked food is the way to go. Sorry, I got to get over what I was listening to before I got online because okay, I will take 2 seconds, and you in the States may not know what's going on up here, and some people up here literally don't care, but I'm one of these people who says never say that as a parent I'm outraged by blah blah blah. I feel that if you start a sentence with "as a parent, I," then the next thing needs to be something along the lines of "try to do right by my kids, try to do the best job I can." But the parent in me keeps thinking about how young some of those kids were, and I look at Clem's little hands as she's getting into everything and being curious and full of life, right? She's still at that age where everything is right on her face. And last night I was looking at, Camille sleeping secure in her bed, safe in this house. Adults protect kids. Adults help them to grow into the next generation. That is my baseline. And so I'm having a hard time getting past that. And I see like people are all, "Oh, my heart is broken." Fuck that. Don't be heartbroken. Be angry. Hold the government's feet to the fire until we do something right by these people. Okay, let's move on, because this is very boring for people who don't know what's going on up here. But anyway, food for camping. Part of the reason I want to talk about this is selfish, because I want to do better at packing food for camping. I think that I'm very much the pack a steak or a pack of bacon into the woods type of person. And that is a function of the fact that I only ever really do an overnighter, a weekend, maybe 3 days with a cooler kind of thing, some sort of cooler that I can pack into the woods, especially these days, because I do mostly glamping with the family, right? So you don't have to minimize. But I don't think that dehydrating your food is as simple as just, I'm going to buy a dehydrator, dehydrate a bunch of stuff, and it's going to be great. I think that dehydration takes a little bit of work. It takes time. It takes time to sort of dial in your dehydrator and your timing and everything. I know this because I have been trying to make jerky, and I just keep making crap jerky with mine. Like, I either go too long and so it becomes like chips, or it's not long enough, and I don't want to poison myself, especially when I'm making like chicken jerky, right? So for me, dehydrating is like this mountain I have to climb. Is this ready yet? Yep, this is definitely ready. I used to think, I don't have the right kind of dehydrator, but I don't think that's true. I think if you have a dehydrator, you have a dehydrator. I'm definitely more dehydrator oriented than oven, because I have a newer oven, so it doesn't really go down to the kind of temperature where you're just drying your food rather than cooking it. And I don't know why that happens. Like, I don't know why these newer ovens don't go down to 140. What? But anyways, I mean, I have a dehydrator. I was gifted one by a friend who was moving to England and didn't want to pack it along. So I've been using it. You know what? I should probably pay attention to some of the side chat here. Sorry, I got political, and then I just started yapping to get past it. Where was it? Oh yeah. Dedicated bushcrafters are typically day trippers or overnighters. Their gear tends to be traditional and comically heavy too. Yeah, absolutely. And that's me. That's me. I like old-fashioned stuff. I like old-fashioned food. I've been trying to. I don't want to pack like cast iron into the woods, even if I'm just going for a short trip. So I want to get like a tin pan or like a carbon steel pan. That's light, but it's not Teflon. Okay. So those of you guys who chat with me on Signal know this. I just replaced my wok in the kitchen here because for years and years and years I had one of those Teflon or whatever, the non-stick. I think it was Teflon, and it had been, you use metal utensils in Teflon and it starts to degrade. And so for years I've been afraid to use. I've used my wok as seldom as possible because I was Tefloning my family. So I was something like, you know what? We're done with that. So I spent like $70 on a carbon steel wok, trashed the rotten to hell Teflon one, and it's funny because I bought the exact same one as a few other people I know have, and they're all like, "You have to season it all the time," and I'm like, "I use font, whatever, Simo Man font. The black metal is heavy. I use cast iron, man. Having to season a pan is not strange to me, but using this wok has made me rethink a lot of the camping cookware that we have in this family, because we have some, Teflon coated, bought an old pan from blah, blah, blah kind of thing. And carbon steel is nice and light and it's thin. And yeah, you wash it with no soap and you season it and it's problem free, You just don't let it rust. Now, that's not really food prep for camping. It's a tertiary point. But it's something I've been thinking about because we may actually get to go camping this year or next year. And a lot of the stuff we have is heavy car camping oriented stuff. Or, an old pan that we didn't use anymore, so we just threw it into the camping stuff. So good. Oh, so good. So good. So caramel, butterscotch, vanilla because it's American oak. Malt. And at the back, espresso. So good. Small sips. And part of what I want to move into is having stuff like Gorp, or trail mix or whatever along so that I can munch on the move. But I also want to balance my love of cooking a steak over a big fire with not having my food go rancid as I'm in the woods if I'm there for 5 days. Being able to carry 5 days worth of food without it becoming too heavy. And an ideal way to do that is to get all the water out, right? But do I want to be buying a bunch of Mountain House things? Maybe not. I'd rather, especially right now where my doctor is like, don't buy anything packaged. Make all your food. I would really rather do that. Dehydrate some stuff that I've done. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Pine Martin has at least one really good video on this. I think he's got a couple actually. I'm pretty sure I've seen more than one. And I'm sort of exploring other people's videos on the YouTubes about this when I can, when I have time. Did I say hi, Chris Garland, earlier? I'm not sure if I did. I hope I didn't miss you. Yeah, and Pine Martin, he was finishing the thought that, you can bring a big old steak or whatever when you're just, And then, which is why virtually every backpacker, through hiker, especially man, through hikers are on the path for a long freaking time. Bike, camper, canoe, tripper, pack, spoil free foods that are light. Exactly. Hey, Hike with Mike is here. How's it going, Mike? I don't know why I just popped you up on screen for that. Tenenbaum has a jerky recipe he would be happy to share with me. I will take that. I will take that. How can you let it go too long? Hey, this tells me that I'm behind on the chat. Sorry, guys. I'll try to catch up. Just look in the dehydrator and take a nibble every once in a while. Yeah. Yeah, I for some reason, I fear taking a nibble too early in the process. Giving myself tummy fires. But I was told that, when you break it, I don't know. I just have to practice. Hey, Tyler's here. How's it going? Food prep the woods. Someone's going to fight about this. Which reminds me, I do want to say, if anyone wants to come on and sort of give their favorite recipes or give a few secrets or something, I'm dropping the chat down there. Does my dehydrator have a temp setting? Yeah, I do believe it does. I should have gotten that out of the back room before coming on. I'm not sure if it's a temp setting or if it's a meat fruit leather, or I'm not sure if it's like straight up temperatures or if it's settings for certain foods. Yeah, I know, Mike, but I don't have a smoker. There's a smoker that I want. It's called the Big Green Egg, but the discussions are still ongoing because they are really expensive. Thing is, I don't want an electric smoker that you just sort of throw the flavor briquettes in or whatever, but I may not have a choice because in Montreal, we're really not supposed to be burning solids. Like, they'll kind of look the other way if you got a charcoal barbecue, which is what we have. But if I'm smoking for like 8 hours a day or something, or if I do like an 11-hour brisket, I may get in trouble for that. Yeah, that's the thing. Oh, I am so far behind. It was the wrong voltage. Didn't want to transport it. All kinds of weird stuff. I'm just trying to catch up here. Yeah, it has to be a steak or a meat with very little fat. I do know that. Yeah, that's the thing. If you're using Teflon, you can't let metal utensils touch it. Absolutely. Over time, they start to degrade. But I mean, it's not like a couple of meals a year is going to give you cancer or whatever. It's, I think it's less important in a camp item than it is in a kitchen cooking. They're not really utensils, are they? Item, whatever. Hey, look who's here, Mr. Nate. I also like food. Oh, but you don't like cooking. You know what? I do like to cook. I don't like stressing over, do I have all the ingredients or trying to come up with a recipe. Okay. What I like is the process of cooking, the chopping, the mixing, the actual physical cooking over heat. I'm good with that. I like that. I keep my kitchen knives nice and sharp. I would love a beautiful set of Japanese knives, but I would spend all my time hovering every time someone tried to wash a knife. So, I love it. Russell says, Nate, I eat food too. We must be soul brothers. I think we're all soul brothers. I think we're such soul brothers. We should be in a band. I'll play bass. Simone says, if the planets align, you should be camping in Ontario mid-June. Nice. Nice. I like that. Okay, yeah, and what Tenenbaum says here is true. There's nothing wrong with steak. It's just generally a first night thing. Yeah, I could get behind that. Start off your first night with a nice big hearty meal, like a send off kind of thing, and then spend the rest of the time eating things that don't go bad if they're not refrigerated. Certain things are easy, right? If you bring cans of beer, which I'm not advocating bringing cans into the woods unless you really are sure you're going to pack them back out. But you can throw your cans of beer or your Nalgene of whiskey. That was no, you're not going to throw a Nalgene of whiskey into the river to cool off. That was a stupid thing to say. Sorry about that, guys. Hey, Tenenbaum, I just said something stupid, so you're going to save us. River to cool off.
Good evening.
Hey, I'm getting some echo there. I just said something stupid.
All right.
I just want to. Oh, hey! Before we go too much further, I just want to show you guys something that Nate set me up with. I don't know if I showed this in the last live stream, but check this out, guys. Finally got my PFT. I'm very happy about it. I did not buy it here in Quebec because I could not find a retailer. So I complained about it online, and Nate said, dude, we have those. Send me money and I'll send one to you. So I did. I'm not sure if I'm into the maple leaf on the back. I always feel too much national pride is kind of cheesy, but you know what? I'm willing to accept it. It's not like a flag at least,
Nice to know that quality PFDs are being made in Canada. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I respect Salus for letting everyone know that they are a Canadian company.
Fair. Hold on. I just want to. Martin agrees with you. I will happily do a steak on nights 1 and 2. Beyond that, it's too much weight. Yeah. And he then says that what I was describing are the temp controls. Cool. Oh yeah, even Nate is saying he'll pack something fresh for night 1, and then he goes into the dehydration doldrums from there.
I mean, you have a couple of days where you can pack some fresh vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Try to take real good care of them, and you eat real well on day 1 and possibly day 2, and then you're moving into the regime you're talking about, where things need to be dried. Although some things will last quite well. I mean, it's about moisture control and all that, and temperature control as well. It depends. I mean, one thing that maybe people don't think about, and maybe they should, is you can try to keep your food pack out of the sun. That actually helps a fair bit. You keep your food pack cold, and things in it will do better if you can manage that.
Yep. Oh, Chris Garland says to Pine Martin that he always refers back to his dehydration video at the start of the food prep season. It's been the foundation for everything I've learned since. I'm glad to hear that. I'm gonna rewatch that video, not while doing the dishes this time. I do most of my YouTubing while prepping the kids' lunches, doing the dishes and stuff, just because there's so little time. But I'm just gonna sit down and take notes. I think maybe after this.
Yeah. Anyhow, I came by to offer up that recipe if you would like it.
Sure. Hold on one little second. Okay, go.
Okay, I got to give credit here. This came from a conservation officer who I worked with at Quetico Park named Dave Doucette. His name is Dave Doucette. I don't know if he's there or not anymore, but he was in 1993 when the Volunteer Canoe Ranger program was still running, and that was something I did for that summer. One of the things, the way that program worked, by the way, is we would spend about 9 days of every 2 weeks out on the water, which was a lot of fun. And so on those other 4 or 5 days, you would do your prep and do your dehydrating and do your setup. Okay. And we didn't use any store-bought high-end camping food. We did a lot of our own dehydration. And the other thing, which was a godsend, and I don't know if people think about this, is that at the time they were called Lipton Sidekicks, but now they're called Knorr Sidekicks. And you have a absolutely spectacular variety of rice and pasta, which you can add water and milk powder and oil to, that is, I mean, it's not great food, but it is cheap food.
And it's calories.
It's calories, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper than high-end camping food. And there's literally 20 or 30 kinds in your typical grocery store, so there's no lack of choices. So between that, or some people prefer ramen and dehydrated meat of various kinds and dehydrated vegetables of various kinds, you can put together all kinds of great meals. And of course, beef jerky, which was a perennial sort of snack. And the way that Dave told me he liked to make his was first step is the marinade, which for him was half vinegar, half teriyaki. So take a big bowl, fill it with a mixture of 50% vinegar and 50% liquid teriyaki sauce. And then you grab yourself some meat. As others in the chat have mentioned, it should be something that's relatively low fat. And ideally, you can trim the fat a bit. You don't want big globs of fat, but a little bit doesn't hurt, and helps the flavor. I used inside round primarily because it's not expensive and easy to cut up.
Right. Across the grain.
Yep, cut it against the grain, and that's probably the most important point, I think.
Yep.
Cut it against the grain, stick it in that mixture, cover that bowl up, leave it in the fridge overnight so that the vinegar gets good and well soaked into that meat and the teriyaki for the flavor. If you like other things for flavor, obviously it doesn't have to be teriyaki, although I think teriyaki's citricness and acidicness help there. But, if you're on the smoky or pepper side of the world, you could probably add other flavorings as well.
I do like smoky and peppery.
Yep, so you could certainly, supplement that. You could use soy instead, and then maybe go with whatever way to get to your pepper or smokiness that you want. Right. I suspect liquid smoke is expedient. It's probably sacrilege compared to using a smoker, but if you've got an oven or a dehydrator, unless you like setting off the smoke alarm, then liquid smoke is perhaps the way to go.
Yeah.
And then it's a question of dehydrating, and I think, like someone in the chat just said, run it and test the consistency out over time. It's pretty hard, although possible, to over dehydrate something.
But here's the question, though. I'm still getting echo.
Maybe from me, but I can move my microphone so that I've got my own dead cat here. It's can obscure my mic a little.
Right.
Maybe you can.
But like, as a general ballpark, are you looking at 4 hours ish?
And this is very much a factor of the effectiveness of your dehydrator and how thin you're slicing. At Quetico, there were a lot of us doing this, so we had a very nice Excalibur commercial dehydrator that did its job very well. For that one, something like 6 to 8 hours was doing the trick if it's sliced thin. You talk about the temperature if you want, but the goal isn't to cook it. The goal is to
dry it,
to suck all the moisture out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to taste and practice. It could be a little soft. You obviously don't want it to be very soft. The YouTube channel is already muted, Mark. Thanks for offering that as a suggestion. I guess if you hear an echo, it just must be my headphones. And anyway.
Martin says that he remembers those Lipton sidekicks. Made a lot of those.
They're called Knorr sidekicks now, and they're still out there. Knorr acquired the Lipton company, so you can still get those in Canada. I'm sorry to say we don't have them here. You literally can't buy that product, anything like that, in Sweden.
Even though Knorr is a Nordic word.
Yeah, Europeans are very suspicious of prepared food. They do sell specific camping foods, just like they do in North America. But like in North America, they're extremely expensive.
And there's the thing. I don't want to spend a crap ton of money on this, right? And I don't think anyone does. I don't. I may be absolutely wrong in what I'm about to say, in which case I will take my lumps. But I do feel that a lot of those higher end meal preparations, dehydrated meals, end up on a lot of sponsored YouTubes and Instagrams, but that a lot of people could not afford to have that many of their meals on like a 5 or 14-day trip.
And I mean, for example, that's the reason why in that volunteer canoe ranger program we weren't using it, because we were going to go out for 9 nights for about 6 or 7 times, and we weren't getting paid. If you're gonna be out for 50 or 60 nights, you're a university student and volunteering.
Yep.
Yeah, those are not on the menu.
Yeah.
Now maybe I mean when I plan trips since then as an older person, sometimes I'll take advantage of those for later days in the trip.
Like a treat?
Yeah, and because the good ones that are flavorful can be really good. The bad ones can be really mediocre, and alas, you only sort of find out by trial and error. But there sometimes it's nice. The other thing is, I guess you could say there are some effects that you can get by freeze drying that are not so easy to get by drying yourself in a So there are certain preparations that commercially will work out a lot more easily than you can manage.
But like you can also, I feel that you can also dehydrate like spaghetti sauce or something and then maybe rehydrate it later. I know you can do that with mushrooms. You can dehydrate the crap out of mushrooms and then just add water and stir, Yep.
And I can tell you that was very much my approach. My tomato sauce would be very, very basic. And then on the side, I'd have different kinds of vegetables. Bell peppers dehydrate very nicely.
Yeah.
Mushrooms dehydrate nicely. A lot of protein is, this is it's not gourmet food, obviously, but you can buy canned boiled chicken. You simply break that up into tiny pieces. To me, that's a lot better than textured vegetable protein. At least it sort of resembles some kind of
I get what you're saying.
Existing protein source. Yeah. And you sprinkle that in. There are other things you can do. Tuna and onions are both wonderful, but they stink, and they stink to high hell while you're hydrating them, which makes them a little less attractive to try to dehydrate them.
Yeah, no way.
But those go well. You can also get all kinds of food, like they have these great tuna and salmon products now that are essentially vacuum packed. They require no refrigeration. They last forever.
That's good for the people in the side chat. I myself, if I take a great big bite out of salmon, I die. So
I know you were an anti-piscivore, but
I'm not anti. I know I'm and like I can eat the white fish, but if I eat any of the oily fish, I'm in severe trouble.
Yeah, for the broader audience, that's an option.
Yeah.
Obviously, ramen, all kinds of pasta.
Yeah. I want to point out 2 things that Martin is on fire tonight because he knows a lot about this stuff. He says, it's been a long time since I've had a commercially made dehydrated or freeze-dried meal, but the thing I liked about them was not knowing how it would taste. The surprise was fun. But then he follows that up with, obviously riffing off what I was saying, that sauces of nearly every type is a staple on camping trips. Just don't make your sauces too oily. That's a good point, actually.
The other way to go is that all kinds of instant soups are very easy. Yeah. And they come out in the field very much like they come out in your kitchen.
Yeah.
And you can make them very hearty by supplementing them, again, with vegetables or dehydrated meats of various kinds.
Beans and stuff, yeah.
Yep. Any kind of bread that has low moisture to begin with, tortillas, etc., last perfectly in the field. Your sliced bread is not so good. For the kids on the camps that we used to go out, we'd take Wonder Bread because Wonder Bread is indestructible and it does not boil.
It's Kleenex bread.
But of course, it's not bread. That's the point. Well, it was for us. It was a vector to deliver to them peanut butter and
jam, right?
Which is what they wanted. Now, of course, you can't deliver peanut butter to children anymore. So I have no idea how people eat anymore. But
you know what you just reminded me of? I just had this flash of being in the bush with my Air Cadet Squadron. And we wake up in the morning, and on this sort of trestle table outside of all the tents, there'd be white ass bread. I don't know if it was Wonder Bread or something, but something real affordable, and these huge Armed Forces grade cans of like peanut butter and jam, like the Costco size, whatever, 4 liters per can or whatever it was. And I just had this real big boom of standing there in the pouring rain, bunch of us around in our combats, spreading peanut butter on this toast.
Standard operating
fire right over there.
Yeah, standard operating procedure is salami and cheese for lunch until you run out of it,
Yeah,
and then PB&J until the trip is over. Since theoretically the PB&J never runs out, since it is your emergency food in the event that you have other problems.
Yeah, but it's funny because when you're bringing 30 kids into the bush, you're not worried about saving space and weight, right? You're just
you're trying to take advantage of efficiencies of size, yes, and you don't have to pack as light. But again, in a way, the rules don't change because now you're asking a child to carry a portage pack, and very often those children do not have lightweight sleeping bags.
Mm-hmm.
So you're loading them often to the limits of their ability when they're younger. So you still can't go heavy. You've got to
no way,
go
absolutely
only
not.
as heavy as they can manage.
Yeah, I want to point out, by the way, something that Mark said here. I find that very old cheddars last a long time unrefrigerated for camping. I also have found the same thing. And he says that, whoops, sorry, Nate, an old cheddar fettuccine Alfredo a week into a trip is a special treat. Well, and
he's right, of course, because it's all about low moisture.
Yeah.
Old cheddar is low moisture. Something like real Parmesan is very low moisture.
Yeah.
Any cheese that's hard and salty and is low moisture is going to last really well. As long as you keep it cool and out of the sun, it will be fine.
Yeah, and I think that keeping your food bag or your barrel or whatever out of the sun is best practice no matter what. Right?
Well, sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes you're in the middle of the lake and it's the sun is blazing, but
But like, do you find that just tossing it overboard into the water? I mean, I don't just mean tossing it, but like keeping it in the water will help to keep things cool in that case, though.
Well, while traveling, that's usually not an option.
Just trail it behind. You can.
I wonder. It may be that's the only item of your kit that may or may not float. Things that are denser than water sink, and the food pack or the food barrel may be
just gone.
Maybe such an object.
Yeah, no, I'm riffing off of the idea that you put your beer in the river, when you're at camp, kind of thing, and it does keep it cold, even if it's not a very cold river. Having your beverages in running water definitely.
The answer is in theory. In practice, I've never trusted that.
Right. So, hold on a second. I would like to point out that I guess Grace said to Mark that his Alfredo idea sounds great, and he said it is amazing, Grace.
I mean, that does sound like a great meal and something that I've always enjoyed a variation on that, which is sort of essentially Kraft Dinner mac and cheese, but obviously with better cheese.
Yeah,
and some kind of meat if you can manage it. I mean, another staple is summer sausage or some kind of dried meat that doesn't really require that much refrigeration.
Yeah, so there's something that I have to balance here, though, right? That I am suddenly on a very low sodium diet. So, like a lot of the stuff we're talking about, a lot of the stuff that I used to bring, right? Because when I would hit the bush with Camille, there was always a pack of ramen because that was our thing. We arrive, we make ramen. I mean, I would still pack the ramen for her and maybe take a little sip because,
I agree that's going to be tricky because salt is often the trick that's used to minimize moisture.
Yeah.
So that's going to require effort, but I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's a little more tricky.
I find that for when I'm not worried about drying and preserving, seasoning without salt is really easy because there's so much else out there you can use. But when it comes to, preserving and drying and this and that, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I would like to point out what Russell just asked. I asked this question on Dennis's live earlier, but didn't get an answer. Exactly what percentage of your backpack should be beer?
Well,
I don't know because when I got one of those in there, I don't know how much beer I can fit.
well, if you're in a park where disposable glass or metal is not allowed, that's very tricky, of course.
Yeah.
But otherwise, who could say?
Yeah. And Mark said that when he worked at Project Dare, I'd make Alfredo as a special treat for the lads. Okay. And then Simo is meeting Russell in exactly the same area of redonkulousness that Russell lives. Bring dry water to rehydrate your beer. Oh, and then Chris Garland brings up chickpeas. Now, here's the thing. I use chickpeas mostly for hummus. I have used them in some recipes before, but that's a nice... To me, if I can find non-meat protein sources like beans and stuff, so that I'm not consuming steak or meat sauce or whatever every single night, to me, that's a win. And by the way, I'm making this sound like I'm just talking about myself, and it sounds really selfish. I want to hear what you guys, do for each other as well, not just for me. I'm saying I'm using me as the example because I'm where I live. You know what I'm saying? It's just the no salt thing might be unique to me tonight. But
I think you bring up another good point, which is flavor is paramount. So putting together a little packet of spice of whatever kind that's going to go with the things that you make is always welcome.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if you're out of the salt game, well, any kind of pepper would obviously be nice. Basil, oregano, if you're doing Italian. You know, very spicy pepper. Mexican is a thing that works quite well on trips in various incarnations.
There's a lot of spice.
Yep, and certainly on those early days when you can sort of have fresh vegetables. Things like citrus will last for a long time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So lemon, lime are nice ways to get some flavor into something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Martin says something that I can definitely get behind. 0%, I say. I love a good beer, but not worth the weight and volume. Scotch serves me better there. I got you, buddy. I got you, brother. Because Russell said I can get 2 cases of beer, maybe even more when I'm camping on my ATV when I'm heading to my cabin. Here's something interesting. Chris says the book Another Fork in the Trail is an excellent dehydrating source, more specifically geared towards the vegans and vegetarians among us. Has anyone here looked into that book? I'm not seeing anyone saying anything.
Not one that I've read.
He says you can supplement with meat as well. But I'll
by the way, that's another thing or another vote for a modular approach is that if you have a group which is a mixture of people with different eating preferences, it's very easy to make the core dish and keep the reconstituted meat, for example, aside so that you can add that to some but not to others. And I can tell you that in my latter years as sort of a canoe tripper at camps, you'd get more and more older kids with very specific eating preferences.
Right.
And so you learn to try to find ways to cook for a large group but all at once, but try to cater to those individuals, essentially without having to make a separate meal for them. And the trick there is to have those things in that kind of modular setup.
Yeah, I get that. I understand, yeah.
It's just like cooking at home. If you have one person who wants something slightly different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm trying to share something here, but it's not working. Boom. So I found the book. There's a fork in the trail, and then there's another fork in the trail. So I will take a look at those. Because if it's a good dehydrating source, then I spend a lot of time poring over recipe books. That's such a boring thing to say, but it's true. Especially nowadays. When I was working at Reader's Digest, I actually edited more than a few recipe books. Like things like eat to beat diabetes, eat to beat high blood pressure, stuff like that. And it's amazing how often a good diabetes recipe is also good for blood pressure. This conversation is suddenly getting geriatric. I'm going to move on. But while I was working there, I did acquire an appreciation for recipes. My cooking has gotten much, much better. Takes a little bit longer because I used to just, I'm going to do a stir fry tonight. Rice, egg, chicken, cube up some peppers, and then like my wife would be, so you're doing that again tonight? Yeah, what's wrong? No, nothing's wrong. So but it was fast, right? I'm just taking a look. I don't want us to okay, so this is a well-known book. Okay. And then Brandon says, beer if it's for a night or two, but I wouldn't bring it on a trip any longer than that. So what about you, Tenenbaum? Do you bring beverages?
On my trips later in life, I've brought wine. They've generally been with my wife and I, and that's
Right.
her preference. I have brought soda as a treat for children in places where one was allowed to carry such things.
Right.
I've brought beer and other things on trips with the guys.
I find it amazing that you just called pop soda, because I grew up with the difference between Canadians and Americans, and then you just crapped all over that.
Well, I'm complicated. I lived in the United States for 15 or 16 years, Canada for 25 years, and now Sweden for several. So I don't localize well.
Sorry, I'm just closing some of my tabs.
I can tell you, I was in rural Florida once, and I asked a man for a pop, and he wanted to know what I wanted with his father.
Oh, for God's sakes!
So
okay, fair enough, right?
It was grape soda specifically, which is why I said soda, actually.
Okay, so Russell will be pleased that I just closed many of the tabs I had open on that other window. Okay, coffee.
Yes.
Instant or regular?
Depends what you're willing to do. I happen to like drip myself, and there's no reason you can't make good drip coffee on a canoe trip. The technology is not complicated. Some people use AeroPress, and I think AeroPress is great if you need an espresso-like experience. If you like instant coffee and it is to your taste, why not?
Well, here's the thing about that. I know several. I was going to say, I know a lot of. Shut up, Jesse. I know some bushcrafters who will not touch instant coffee, but as soon as they hit the bush, they got all these little, those thin Starbucks things, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Full up instant, and there's a lot of stuff that is context driven for me as well.
I'm not a fan. I have instant coffee in my survival kit. I don't voluntarily consume it. I would much rather have real brewed coffee if I can manage it.
Yeah.
And tea, of course. I mean, tea is easy. The tea bag is a wonderful invention. It makes it super easy.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm more into tea than coffee myself, anyway. Though I do have a certain love for Cowboy Coffee.
And again, from the point of view of tripping with kids, hot chocolate is a perennial
godsend. Yeah,
they go for that. If you want to get them out of the tent in the morning, having a pot of hot chocolate ready is extremely effective.
Yeah, absolutely. You're bringing up some really good points, because I haven't been. The context of this conversation for me is not when I'm camping with my kids. It's when I'm doing it solo. Because if I'm camping with the kids, when the family goes out, we car camp. We glamp, as I like to call it. I will take it anyway because I am in the woods with my loved ones. But at the end of the day, we don't worry about dehydrating or otherwise trying to find ways to minimize the space and weight taken up by our food. It's when this hasn't happened in the past year or two because the world ended, but when I go into the woods and I don't want my food to take up all the weight in my bag, and I've been terrible at this, I do pack a fresh steak or pack a bacon, for a couple of days and stuff.
I think it's like anything else where you're going to carry literally everything you have on your back. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
You want to have things that you will enjoy.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have it so that it impedes your ability to move or makes moving agonizing.
Yeah.
And so you find a way to make the compromises that you're willing to make.
Right.
I mean, in a way, this comes down to sort of one fundamental tripping issue, which I think about a lot, which is, are you willing to double back or double carry on portages or not? If you are, you can have more stuff.
Mhm.
If you aren't, then you really have to apply your limitations and razor in terms of what you will or won't carry much more finely, because then you really have to be able to literally put everything you have on your back in a single trip,
Yeah.
and that's a lot leaner. I mean, it has to be.
I like to think of myself as a minimalist, but I'm not. Like, I like to have as few things as possible, but I haven't been doing it in a serious way long enough to really trim my stuff down. I'm very into tools that can do a few things, a few different things. I'm very into being able to make a fire so that I don't have to bring a Coleman stove along. Stuff like that. Having the smallest stove I can get away with, so long as it will boil my water in under an hour, kind of thing.
The other thing I'm sensitive to now, and speaking of geriatric sentiments, is that I simply can't carry as much as I could when I was younger comfortably.
Amen, brother. My knees won't let me get away with that anymore.
And so that is starting to inform my decision making in terms of and it's equipment, but it's food too. I mean, if it's a longer trip, it's definitely food too.
Yeah.
So in extremely long trips, food becomes as heavy as anything else on those first few days.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm just gonna put the invite in the side chat again, just in case someone else wants to come up and talk with us about this.
Please, I'm definitely. You're surely tired of hearing from me.
No, I'm absolutely not, because everything you're saying is very interesting. But it would be nice if a little conversation between two guys who know so much more than me. I use guys in the generic sense. I don't mean men. But hey, Zach Fudge is with us, man. How's it going, Zach? I haven't seen you in a while. In a minute, as they say these days. Mark says frozen homemade spaghetti meat sauce. I've carried that up in the mountains, and boy, do people smile. Yep, I get that. I could see that. Alain is hi. Alain is packing for a long weekend up north. I won't be hiking, so I'm not packing light. And that's the thing. When I do the car camping with the family, we don't care about packing light. We got a car. In fact, we have an SUV, so we can pack it full. So we don't worry about it. But when I'm not glamping with them, I do want to minimize the weight. I just turned 49, guys. Was it last week or the week before? I don't carry as well as I used to. I don't have quite the stamina that I used to have. Shrinking the stuff I pack where I can is golden to me. Having food along that doesn't require an ice pack is a win, right? Because you throw 3 or 4 ice packs into your pack, and suddenly, okay, we got some weight happening here. And an ice pack takes up room in the barrel or bag or whatever that could go into God knows how many little, like 2 or 3 frozen meals.
I was going to say the trick there is to find things that you want to bring anyway that can be frozen, and they become essentially your your temporary source of cold as they're unfreezing. One meal that we would do at my camp is we would do a sort of meat stew on the second or third night, and its foundation would be essentially a frozen piece of roast beef. That by the second or third night would not be a frozen piece of roast beef anymore.
And it's thawed, but it hasn't sort of started to
bacteria.
Yeah. Russell has, of course, in typical Russell fashion, come up with a great idea. We need a drone that can carry our pack and just follow us around. Oh, Chris is here. How's it going? Nice to see you. Our favorite go-to for most every trip are falafels. Just add water to the mix.
Is an excellent call.
That is a really good call. That's a good enough call that I'm taking note of it. I hadn't even thought of that.
Pita is one of those breads that's pretty dry and lasts pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So falafel or whatever else is a wonderful thing to put in there.
Yeah, and a little tomato and hummus in a wrap. Oh man, yeah.
But tomatoes are pretty acidic. They last pretty well if you.
They last really well. Yeah. Just don't go crushing them, or you'll have tomato sauce, right? yeah, that's the goods right there. Mark says canoes and kayaks are often awesome to save knees until you hit portages. I haven't tripped in years. Yeah. Okay, so this has turned into I'm clearly not the only old fart here. Alain says it's not just carrying but also sleeping. I need more comfort when I age or I'm too sore to sleep.
Oh, I'm with Alana there. I have a thermarest of a size which, as a younger person, I would have laughed at myself for possessing it.
Mm-hmm.
But now, in terms of the quality of sleep I get and how good I feel and how much energy I have the next day, it's worth that little bit of extra weight in size. 100%.
What I'm trying to figure out, because speaking of weight and sizes, I kind of have to figure out how to bring a CPAP machine along. And I mean, I know you can get a battery and stuff, but that's only good for 2 days. So if I'm out for 4 days,
Well, I guess you need 2 batteries. That's tricky. I mean,
I found a CPAP specific, like a little solar kit. Maybe I'll just leave that out all day, kind of thing.
But what if it isn't sunny? I mean, it's a question of what the margin of error here is.
Yeah, I know. Hi, Jake. It's been a minute, eh? Welcome to the side chat. Welcome to the live stream. Nice to see you. I just want to sort of see if we can. He says the best is frozen chili in a peanut butter jar. Well, I guess that would act as the ice pack, like you were saying earlier, right?
But I was going to say, chili is another dish that does well. I mean, you can sort of dehydrate the tomato paste part of it quite nicely. The beans travel nicely. You can dehydrate beef or whatever else to whatever extent if you want to do meat chili. Obviously, peppers travel well. Cheddar cheese travels well. So yeah, chili's a nice one.
I kind of feel that I was going to say marshmallows, but that's not the word I wanted. I kind of feel that mushrooms are something I need to really explore for something like this. You know, like morels. How do you pronounce that in English?
It is morel.
Morels.
But even your plain old field mushroom is plenty good. You know,
chanterelles maybe.
You get it. They're very cheap in Sweden. That's one of the benefits of living here. The chanterelle is widely available.
Okay.
Especially in season.
Right. Mark says the one issue with falafel is the oil will attract nibbles right through the Nalgene bottles. I learned this the hard way, and leaky tops too.
Well, anything tasty attracts the nibbles and nibblers. So
the thing is, if you bring your falafel, you can bring it just like as a dried mix, right? And make it there. So
I think that's an option. I think he's worrying about the oil primarily.
Right. All right. Russell says, I bring gnocchi, pasta, butter, oil, and blackening season, and a bit of cream. Good stuff.
Yep. Nice.
Actually, that sounds really good.
Obviously, the cream is a day or 2 or 3, but...
Yep. You know, and it's funny because Simon says something here that sounds like it's completely off topic, but made me sort of think of something else, right? He says he purchased a climate sleeping pad last winter and looking forward to many good night of camping. And he used the word winter. And here's the thing. Obviously, when you're out there in the cold, what you have to worry about is not everything going bad due to heat. It's maybe being able to thaw your stuff, right?
I'm not going to claim to be an expert on winter camping, but obviously the whole problem is turned on its head there. Yes.
Yeah.
Then you've got to be able to unfreeze things potentially to cook them.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're hot tenting, presumably that should not be the biggest problem. If you're doing something which some people do, which is not hot tenting, then you're going to have to be fairly creative. Yeah.
I would not be able to not hot tent in the winter. I'm just too old. Yeah, I'm not like when I was younger. I could take anything. I just can't anymore. I don't want to say that I've become a complete wimp or anything, but I can't take the stuff I used to be able to take. Shall we put it that way?
Not willingly, anyway. It has to be fun, right? I mean, when it stops being fun, why are you doing it?
Yeah. Martin says something interesting here. Ghee is a good alternative to regular butter, and that's true. right?
Absolutely.
Clarified, all kinds of Um, okay, so Chris is
And,
saying that they just
and,
buy
and,
their
and,
falafel mix.
and coconut oil as well is another
Yeah,
fantastic
absolutely.
fantastic choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it solidifies at room temperature, and it doesn't
Doesn't
rot
really
out
go
on you.
doesn't really go
Yeah,
bad.
no.
So
Yeah, absolutely. You just reminded me. Speaking of keeping your butter and stuff good, in the kitchen we have. Do you know that French style butter bell?
I think so. Yes, it's ceramic.
Ceramic, right? And the whole
Yep.
idea is it's a two-part thing, right? It's kind of it's not a bowl, but it's a straight-sided bowl with a butter bell that goes on and covers the bowl. And what you do is you fill the bowl up like a third of the way up with cold water. You
Hmm.
fill the bell with a half pound of butter, maybe a quarter pound, no, a half pound, quarter, whatever fits in there, and then you put it in, and the water fills up, but it doesn't overflow. And what that does is create a seal so that you can keep your butter at room temperature on the kitchen counter for 3 weeks. And if you need to have softened butter for something, you don't have to soften your butter because it's been room temperature for 2 or 3 weeks. And you change your water every 3 days. But what that does is it seals it so that it doesn't go rancid.
Cool.
Useless for what we're talking about tonight, but was something that
Probably doesn't travel all that well, but that's
no,
very cool.
it'd be like Quest for Fire but with butter, right? Don't spill the over hill or dale. I think I may have just aged myself with that film reference, but anyway.
Good movie.
Yep. Hold on. So Martin says that they use the same brand of falafel mix. That's good because what Chris had said was that they buy a supermarket falafel mix. Yeah, definitely gonna give that a look because I do like a nice falafel. Martin says coconut oil is my coffee condiment instead of cream.
A lot of people like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Never even occurred to me. Like coconut oil is good for
nice flavor too.
Okay. Jake says, you don't need to dehydrate anything. If you're bringing a cooler, then you're okay with chili. Just cook it at home and freeze it in a PB jar, and it acts like your ice. Yeah. And what I was saying earlier is that, like, when we're car camping, we just bring a big-ass cooler and fill it full of everything, and some stuff is frozen to act as an ice shows pack, Jesse. But if I'm hiking into the 10K into the woods or something, I don't want to have a cooler with me. I want to be able to just pack everything along, or if I'm going paddling or something. Hold on. Zach says, I usually pack instant pancake mix and Nutella for breakfast for my girlfriend. I thought I was picky until I met her. Yeah, those instant mixes are nice because in that box, which takes up all kinds of room, it's usually just like a plastic envelope, right?
Yeah, you can just transfer that to a
Just,
Ziploc or whatever.
Yeah, that too.
You're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pancakes are a favorite, obviously. French toast, if you can manage it with the eggs. Although, one of the nice things about French toast is you can use an egg mix. And, those egg mixes, maybe you feel like it's not good enough to eat straight as scrambled eggs, but it can make pretty respectable French toast. So you have bread that lasts a day or two, and you've got yourself a pretty nice breakfast there.
Right. Russell says, I tried to dehydrate pancake mix, total fail. Because, of course he does. Then Hike with Mike follows that up with Russell uses that brand of falafel too. Just hold on. I'm just seeing if... Okay, we're caught up with the chat, which is nice because that never happens on my channel. yeah, it's just when I'm in the woods, I will accept things that I would never accept at my table in my home. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because in my mind, I'm roughing it. In my mind, I'm in the woods. I'm literally in the woods. And the and I'm not high maintenance even sitting in my own kitchen, and I'm never high maintenance in a restaurant. Having worked customer service, I don't create a scene. But in the woods, the food is almost just there for sustenance. There are certain things that I associate with being at hunt camp or being in the woods or whatever, and so I enjoy those things by default.
And for fuel, of course. I mean, if you're putting out a lot of energy in the day, you've got to get your calories in.
You need
So
those calories, yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
when I eat at home, I have to think about, well, I don't really want to. I've been sedentary all day. I don't need thousands of calories, but if I paddled all day, I do need thousands of calories. So that sort of
Well,
changes the way you might plan.
I constantly talk about how taking 1,000 years off of today's date adds thousands of calories to your daily intake because if you're living on a farm, you get up early, you work all day, and you crash after supper kind of thing. You have a little small beer to get you going, throughout the day and everything, and then you have a meal and an ale, and then that's about it because there's no lighting. So you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next day, and you have another brutal day at the farm, and and so eating fats and massive calories and stuff, it's just part of your day to day because you're using those muscles all the time. Merton says, speaking of powdered eggs, the brand Thrive Life makes excellent powdered eggs, not cheap, but so tasty. And, I have no problem with them not being cheap because it's not something I eat every day, right?
Yeah.
I'm taking note of that brand.
Ova Easy, maybe. I'm trying to remember if that's their product. It's there are good fried egg. There are good egg mixes out there.
Okay, I just took, for me, I've been put off of egg mixes by excuse me, breakfast at my school when I was a kid. There's a breakfast program for the kids who couldn't afford, or whose parents couldn't afford to feed them in the morning. Um, and at cadets, basic training, junior leadership school, anytime I was on an
Oh,
air base, the eggs were always bloody powdered and they were crap.
well, I'm not a huge fan, but it's sort of a they fill a logistical gap if you're talking about longer trips, which is
Mm-hmm.
fresh eggs for the first few days until you either run out of them or have broken all of them. Uh, Things like oatmeal in the further future.
Yeah.
But then there's this opportunity in between where unless you want to have oatmeal 5 times or 7 times or 14 times or 30 times, then you have to be able to have something else, and you can
Yeah.
be creative with powdered eggs, as I said, French toast or whatever else. You can
Yeah.
you can do some different stuff,
Yeah.
which is always nice. The other thing is that if you're going to put together different kinds of meals, if you have an arsenal that includes powdered egg, powdered milk, and oil, uh, that's the beginning of adding to a lot of other things to make all sorts of things.
Okay.
If you're going to try to bake, if you're going to try to take flour and that, and
I'm not
whether
going to
it's,
bake in the forest. So I look like Ray Mears to you, making bread in a
yeah,
Dutch oven
yeah, you can
for
make
the
a
filming
bannock,
crew.
you can make bannock, you can make a Johnny cake.
Yeah. Yeah. You can make bannock. What I would probably do is do that thing where you wrap it around the stick.
Yeah.
Because I remember, when I was a kid, my family doing it that way.
Or you can thicken a sauce, or I think you get where I'm coming from here. I
Yeah.
would call those sorts of things kitchen or camp food staples. It's
Yeah.
always handy to have a little bit of that around.
And I feel that camp food staples have changed since like the 50s or
Well,
earlier or
it
like
isn't
100 years ago. You
it
know?
isn't 20 pounds of fat back. No.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of me would love to see a weekend of camping with like Nesmik or one of those guys, like the way it was done back then, just to see how much stuff did they really pack. Was there a trunk in that canoe? you know, because you read the books by guys like Nesmik and what's his name? What's his name? Anyways, the other sort of big name of historical camping is like
Horace Kephart.
yeah, Kephart, exactly. It's like a tin of bacon will do you well on the. And I'm like, wow, a tin? How many tins are you bringing?
I don't think their diets were terribly varied, though. I think they ate a lot of beans and pork.
A lot of beans and pork.
A little bit of flour.
But think of it, man. They were living in a world where there was no mountain house, right?
No,
there were no MREs, and even MREs take up a lot more room than mountain house, and it's just like food must have taken up so much of their bags, or their cases or whatever, the middle of their canoes. Like I wonder.
I mean, I have to say, I sort of, when I see documentaries and I read about the Coureurs de Bois and the Voyageurs, I'm sort of in awe. Because if you read about the amount of weight that they routinely carried, and I think this was a big part of it. It was carrying that amount of food so they could journey that amount of distance.
Yeah,
the amount of weight that they carried was just amazing. I mean, these were obviously tougher people than we are.
Well, that's what I keep saying about that's what I keep saying about take 1,000 years or 500 years off of today's date, and like your normal Joe or Jane is a hell of a lot tougher than I am. Like a lot tougher than I am.
Well, if some of these historical sources are to be believed, they would pick up a bundle and carry it over a rough portage, and it would be of a weight of the kind of object that I can barely pick up under any circumstance. And they would do that all day.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Absolutely. I just want to sort of catch up on the side chat. So, by the way, guys, if I miss a comment you made, and you really wanted me to you were really speaking to me instead of someone in the side chat, put my name, and I'll see it. Jake says bannock goes a long way. You can bring it in small Ziploc and it feeds 4 people generously. Yeah. If you've, can you make bannock from Bisquick? Do you think?
I think Bisquick, which I've used, is not that far from where you're trying to end up with bannock. So yes.
I wonder. Yeah. Zach says, I don't recommend powdered milk with cereal. That was all my great grandmother bought when I was growing up. Yeah, when I was a kid, we were pretty poor. Like I remember, we used not a lot of the powdered milk, some on occasion, but we had a lot of puffed rice cereal in the mornings.
I would not want to drink it or put it in cereal, but when you have a recipe that calls for a certain amount of milk, it works perfectly for that on a hiking or canoe trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake did sort of say something that, like, if you're doing that much work, he said he did a 14-day Algonquin trip, came out stronger coming out than going in, and that's true. Like you're doing exercise, right? You are building muscle mass. You are building stamina. Unless you really kind of duff it up, you're going to come out a stronger person than you went in, and that's part of the magic.
I was going to say, especially if you're healthy and young.
Especially
as you're less healthy and older, that becomes less and less true.
Don't mess with my optimism here, mister.
Okay. I'm bringing my personal issues into this. I am definitely less healthy and less young. So.
Yeah, well, me too. I mean, we both know that I'm dealing with a lot of shit right now. I put the invite down there again for if anyone who wants to pop in and tell us what their approach to making like camp meals is. It would be nice to sort of have a little conversation going. Now, so Tenenbaum,
Yeah.
say you're setting up for a week in the woods, okay?
Hmm.
A week, I feel, is a good sort of
Yeah.
baseline to base something on.
How big is our party? How many of us are there?
3.
Ooh, let's say 4 because it's 2 canoes.
All right, 4. Good point. All right, we're gonna call it 4 people. An easy week. Pick the park you want to be in.
Sure. We've still got some portages though. It's not.
I'm fine with that. It's
It's
got to
not
be
a walk in
something
the park.
where
We got to be able to move.
Yeah, you got to be able to move. You're gonna work those muscles. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, hold on. Jake says, "Yeah, I'm 32. Man, 32 is a good year for me.
I remember 32. 32
I
was
remember 32. I remember 32 like it was 12 years ago. Holy crap. It was more than that. 49, eh? God, I turned 49.
Mark, by the way, just volunteered to be the one person in the canoe by himself. So, yes, it could be 3 in 2 canoes, but yes.
Let's call it 4 people, okay? God, I'm just trying to make everything simple, and Mark has to ruin everything. So let's just say, okay, week in, I don't know, what do you want? Algonquin?
Sure. It's some kind of relatively easy Algonquin loop.
Relatively easy, but there's still going to be some portaging and stuff, okay? Because what I'm thinking about here is the amount of work you're going to do on the day-to-day is going to affect the number of calories you need, right?
So that's one consideration. The other consideration is that you should always you always really have to bring a little more than you need just in case.
Mm-hmm.
It's less true than Algonquin than it is if you get really remote. But even in Algonquin, maybe there's a day that you're on your own and you need more. So, if it's a 7-day trip, you're packing at least 1 or 2 extra meals from a safety point of view.
Right. You need to pad a little bit just in case. I get that. So if you're going for a week, you want to keep things relatively interesting, but it's pouce me pouce égal, we say in French. It's like make it a little interesting, but don't push your luck, I guess, kind of thing. It doesn't really, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't go overboard.
Yeah.
Are you the type who needs 3 meals a day?
I mean, I guess I should say that I think this is true for many of us. Someone teaches you how to do this, and you come out of some kind of tradition, and then you sort of replicate what you know. So the tradition I come from is absolutely yes. There's breakfast you have in camp to fuel yourself. There's lunch you have on the fly to give you a break during the day and to keep you going. And then there's dinner at the end of the day once you've bedded down and set up to fuel you through the night and get you ready for the next day. So yeah, there's at least 3 real meals, and there's probably usually you've got some kind of snacking options.
Right, and that's the way I have always done it. Now, I was talking to Martin a few weeks ago. Geez, was that a month ago, Martin? I don't remember. And I don't remember. He has like 1 or 2 big meals a day, and just uses. I'm paraphrasing, and I'm probably getting this completely wrong, but I think he and his wife just do like trail mix and stuff between whatever supper and breakfast.
And I, without talking too much about Martin, because I don't know him that well, from what I do know is that reflects his own personal lifestyle for when he's not tripping too. So it works for him.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that works for everybody. I mean, many people eat 3 meals a day.
Jake says, on our 14-day trip, we had oatmeal for breakfast, a Cliff Bar for lunch, and a massive dehydrated meal for supper, like shepherd's pie, spaghetti, and meat sauce. Chicken pesto pasta was amazing.
Beauty.
Wow. But like, would you make the biggest meal your supper, or would you make your biggest meal more like your lunch?
In a way, this is a tricky question, and I'm going to give you a slightly tricky answer, which is to say, the suppers should be substantial, but the lunches can almost be variable in size. And what I mean by that is, let me give you the example I gave you earlier, which is salami and cheese until it runs out, and then PB&J for the rest.
Right.
You can bring as much salami and cheese as you want, and maybe if you're hungrier one day, you have more,
Mm-hmm.
and you have more until you don't have any more. And I mean, with PB&J, you bring more than you need, and if you want to have 2 sandwiches that day, you have 2 sandwiches that day, or whatever it is you have for your lunch. So I think with lunches, you can, as long as you have enough stuff, you can adjust them to your hunger at that particular moment. Typically, your dinners tend to be more finite because it's, unless you're having the same thing over and over, you've got a certain amount of something. Breakfast can be adjustable, especially if it's the same thing for a few days. For the things that are the special things, obviously you have as much as you have and no more.
Right.
So I guess to try to get back to the question, I wouldn't want the lunch to be huge because you don't want to. You still want to move.
Right. Because if you have too big a lunch, you're kind of like, okay.
The other thing is that lunch has to be fairly simple. I mean, maybe you have a hot lunch because melted cheese on grilled salami is really great, but of course, that's a production. Now you've got a site. Now you've got a fire. Now you're taking some time out.
Now you're stopping. It may end up suddenly 2 hours have gone by.
Exactly. Depends on your rhythm that day. I mean, if you're a volunteer ranger at Quetico and you're trying to get things done, you don't have a hot lunch. You munch on some meat, you munch on some cheese, and you're done, and you get back to work.
Yep.
So I think the dinner's definitely substantial, and I think lunch is variable.
Martin does say, and this kind of dovetails with what you said. Typically, 1 meal a day on camping trips, no snacks, pemmican in case we need it, but that's because we're on a keto diet. Wouldn't work on a conventional diet.
Yeah, and everybody's different. I don't have a metabolism that's compatible with that approach.
Mm-hmm.
I would be hungry all the time.
Right. And Jake followed up by saying that they were traveling over lunch and wanted to make good time. We also had an early dinner and we're in bed by 9, so we could be up and out by 8. He also, by the way, said that he lost 20 pounds on that trip.
I mean, when I was younger, I would have that experience. I'd come back from trips and my belt would be past the tightest hole. I'd be making a new hole in the belt to try to keep my pants on.
Yeah.
And that's a distant memory, alas.
Yeah, those were the days, right? Those were the days. Absolutely. So on our hypothetical,
yep, there are 4 of us. We're going to the park. We're going out. 4
of us. We're doing breakfast, lunch, and supper.
Yep.
Light lunch so that we don't stop too long. Might just be trail mix, right, on the road.
Could be. Yeah.
How big is your breakfast, do you think?
It depends on the day. I mean, obviously you can go fancier earlier, and for me, by the end, it's oatmeal. Mm-hmm. An instant oatmeal is good stuff, and it's just a question of how hungry and how many packs you are, and how much good stuff you want to add in there. More raisins, more nuts, etc.
Yeah, I could easily do porridge every morning. Not because I love porridge, because I don't. But it's a good sort of foundation that I can build on. What I've been doing a lot lately as I've been trying to get healthier is I've been getting this overnight oats thing, right? You make them, you put milk. Well, you don't even make them. You put them in a jar. You put milk in the jar. You put a whole bunch of, I was going to say fruits and veggies, but I actually meant berries. I'm tired, guys. Put a bunch of berries on, leave it in the fridge, pull it out the next morning, eat it cold, which was a real adjustment, let me tell you. But if it's a reasonably flavored, like I would probably just bring a bunch of those Quaker Oats. Here's a maple brown sugar one. Here's an apple cinnamon one. Here's a peach. No, that would be disgusting. But you know what I'm saying?
The peach, the peaches and cream one's not that bad.
Really?
Yeah, it's all right.
But
maybe a little artificial tasting.
Because I'm starting the day with that, I feel like I could work it off. Whereas I wouldn't want to end the day with one of those because I don't know what the hell's in those really. Like I know there's a crap ton of sugars and stuff,
Yeah, I don't know that they're super healthy. I mean,
but I'm not going to stress about it because we as North Americans we are predisposed to eating an unhealthy breakfast. Sweet stuff, cereals. I have friends who lived in Japan for a while. Breakfast there was rice and fish, right? I mean, we have what's his name, John Kellogg. Was his name John? Kellogg, one of the Kellogg brothers who
yeah,
gave us Kellogg's, who gave us cornflakes.
right.
We have these guys to thank for this weird breakfast cereal idea.
Well,
But I mean, I'm a North American guy. That's what I grew up with:
well,
porridge or puffed rice when we were podunk.
muesli is good. Granola is good.
Stuff like that I like. We've started making our own granola, which
Pretty
is,
popular around here.
yeah. And if you make your own granola, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. Just don't burn it, he said with a certain sheepish grin. Um,
So just
okay.
on the topic of breakfast, in a week-long trip, you're not too worried about monotony or boredom. When you go longer than that, you usually want a little bit of variation, so that
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that that things aren't the same every day forever. And that's where
Legit.
where
Yeah.
where slightly fancier breakfasts early, and then some source of variation later, is welcome, so that you can say, "This is not the seventh day in a row I've had oatmeal."
Yeah. I get that. I would have a hard time with 7 days. I could maybe do 4 in a row. Then I want something else for like 2 days, 3 days, kind of thing.
But
Zach says he usually does 2 meals a day. Usually, only one with snacks in between. I intermittent fast, usually 8 hours. I can't. I can eat 16. I don't. Um, Mark says 3/4 cup of oats per person. Big bowl of oats equals lots of fuel. So he's sort of hitting on what I'm saying. But I can't have just plain oatmeal. I need my porridge to have a little flavoring
well,
to it. Yeah.
maple syrup or brown sugar are both very nice things. Raisins and nuts are nice things.
Maple syrup
Apples, as
and
someone in the chat
brown
just said,
sugar.
very nice.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's a question from Chris Garland. Does anyone leave a meal in the car once you return? You mean like just to sort of have one in there as an emergency, or do you mean, I don't know?
I think that would be a little contextual. If your car was parked in some remote place, that sounds like a good emergency provision to me in the event that
Yeah,
things
and I'm wondering if that's what
not
he's
going
talking
well.
about. Yeah.
If you're coming back to the portage store, then hopefully the kitchen's still open and you don't have to worry about that.
Fair point. Very fair point. I'm just putting the invite down in the chat again. I think that's probably what he says. I do believe that it's a good idea to have a dehydrated meal in your car. Here's the thing. I think it's a good idea to have a oh crap kit in your car, right? Shovel, those things you put under your tires so that you can get out of being stuck, whatever they're called with the spikies. First aid kit, maybe a little alcohol stove or something with a little bin. Uh, English, just not a jar, but a little oil, a little fuel for an alcohol stove or something. Maybe ramen or like an emergency meal. I think it's a good idea to have one of these kits. And it's funny because a lot of the people who are doing these kits are preppers, and I'm not a prepper, and I'm prepper averse in certain ways. But
you don't have to be a boy prepper to have what I'll call the Boy Scout ethic, which is to say, you like to
be prepared. Yeah,
which is a nice thing to be.
Yes. Yeah. I just want to say, Chris, Zach says to Chris, I usually get takeout to treat myself on the way home.
I mean, yes, junk food as soon as possible is not a bad policy from my point of view.
Jake says, excuse me, you need to mix the apples and cinnamon one with the brown sugar one. That's amazing. Okay. And then he follows up with puffed rice. What is that? Are you old? Shut up, okay? Hey, Sensox here. How's it going? Welcome to the chat, or to the live stream and the side chat. Alain says you can't eat healthier than a McDonald's Egg McMuffin with sausage and bacon.
Or several of them.
Yeah, 3 of them. You can stack them up. Mark says oats with maple syrup, brown sugar, molasses, etc. Yep, my relationship with molasses is fraught, shall we say? But my relationship with brown sugar and maple syrup is quite good. Steel cut oats with butter and honey and raisins. Yeah, but I'm not going to do that while I'm out camping. I do steel cut oats are my favorite style of porridge. What I used to do before I had kids was I'd put it on to cook, go take my shower, and then when I came back, it was ready. Wasted no time. Steel cut oats are the bomb. Excuse me. Getting a little tired here, guys. But yeah, I do love me some steel cut oats. Brandon has 3 oatmeals: banana, peanut butter. What? Apple, cinnamon, and a berry mix. Keeps me from getting too tired of just oatmeal. Yeah, variety is the way to go. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting. Granola and chocolate protein powder is a nice quick breakfast alternative. That's from Brandon Cosman. I have never heard of chocolate protein powder before.
It comes in all flavors.
Sandsock says, last time I took my wife canoeing, we got back to the put-in and went to Wendy's, then drove around the store and went to Wendy's a second time.
There is a special kind of pleasure of having hot food that someone else made for you.
Right after a big ass trip like that.
After a big trip.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. I have stopped at Tim Hortons for a breakfast sandwich or whatever on the way home from someplace. And it's funny, but for me, the biggest pleasure isn't a hot meal. It's a cup of tea. Pull in somewhere, get a tea, a venti if you're going to Starbucks or something big, and then just kick back. And then, don't kick back for too long because I'm on my way home kind of thing, and I want to get home and see my family. But I like to have a cup of tea while I'm driving. For me, road trips always start and end with a cup of tea. There's always tea in the thing between the 2 seats, whatever that little cup holder is called. Cup holder. Excuse me. But I do like to stop. I eat a lot on road trips. I used to be that I would start by going to Bulk Barn and getting a bag of almonds, a bag of M&Ms, a bag of something chocolate covered, blah blah blah, and stopping in at either Tim's or Starbucks and getting a cup of tea for the road, kind of thing.
Well, especially if you're the driver, you got to stay fueled. You gotta have the energy. There's nothing more terrifying than having to drive and not feeling like you're with it.
Dude, even driving home from a gig at 3 a.m, I almost put my fiddler and me into the front end of an oncoming car once. He starts saying, "Hey, wake up," kind of thing. So I absolutely appreciate anything that'll keep me alive.
A steady flow of calories and caffeine are the way to go there.
Yeah. My sinuses are starting to go crazy. Dust. Brandon says chia seeds, hemp hearts, and flax seeds are great to put in the oatmeal as well. And maple flakes. Man, I haven't even thought about maple flakes in a long time. Jake says, after our 14-day trail, we had Tom Thompson burger at Canoe Lake. It was a massive burger, and we ate it on the hood of the SUV. I was drooling like Homer looking at donuts.
Yep.
I guess that's a Simpsons thing, right?
Yep.
There's value to treating yourself after spending 4 days eating freeze-dried meals.
I was going to say, I mean, we're talking about junk food because you sort of crave it, but the other thing you suddenly have access to that you didn't before is fresh things, things that grew,
Mhm.
like fruit and vegetables that you probably haven't seen for a while, and it's always
Yeah.
a
Yeah, I
pleasure,
get that.
pleasure to get back to that too. Like one of the things that you can do on the first night or the second night is a salad, but after
Yeah.
about 2 days, it's a real stretch. So
Yeah.
the leafy greens have gone bye for at least a few days.
Yeah, and I do like my leafy greens. I do like a nice salad. I like stuff like that. Like after spending some time in the bush, I don't need chips. I don't need chocolate. But if you want to throw a Caesar salad with chicken on it in front of me, I don't know, pick a restaurant or a burger or a poutine, I'll go for any of that.
Sold.
I don't need a chocolate bar, right? I don't need chips or chocolate. I don't care about that. I don't need a bag of Twizzlers, but I'll eat a lasagna. I will eat the hell out of a plate of spaghetti. And I never order pasta out because it is the cheapest damn thing to make at home. But, Brandon says I try to hit up a Five Guys when I can after a trip.
Nice.
I almost never see a Five Guys anywhere. There's one in downtown Montreal, but it's not something I see a lot of around here. Sandsock says, I remember we had some girls botch baking brownies for supper on the camp stove. We ended up frying brownie mix into no-bake cookies.
Yeah. This, by the way, is another related interesting topic that we haven't covered much tonight yet, which is treating yourself vis-a-vis desserts and s'mores. And some people like Rice Krispie squares, but I kind of despise them because the cleanup is hell.
Horrendous. Yeah.
But kids love them, so this is one thing that we would perpetually do, unfortunately. But you can bake all kinds of things if you've got some chocolate or some maple syrup and something bread-like. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. S'mores.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say Dickie's Beer Reviews says cheers, and Chick-fil-A. Obviously, Dickie's Beer Reviews stops off for a Chick-fil-A on the way home. I don't believe there's a Chick-fil-A anywhere in Canada, but I don't know. But it's sort of the same thing, right? After a week of bush food, a lot of people want to eat something that's urban and juicy and terrible for them, but tasty.
Hot and tasty and fresh. A good French fry is kind of hard to achieve while camping, so that's something that's a very attractive thing to eat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can fry potatoes shallowly in oil, but it's not quite the same thing.
Nope. Ali seconds the s'mores idea. And Sandsock says mac and cheese with broccoli.
Yeah. I think on broccoli, unless you freeze it, you got a good couple days at least, so could do.
Here's the thing about that though. Like if I'm not sure if Sandsock means on the way home after, a week of eating for dried meals, or if it's at camp when I don't want to try to clean out a pot full of melted cheese while I'm in the bush. A pan, okay, because I've usually put down oil so it's not sticking to it, but a pot with melted cheese, I'm like, oh.
Well, I mean, there's a couple ways to look at this. So, going back to being a guide for a camp, mac and cheese was a very popular meal with kids.
Yeah.
We would make a big pot of it. As long as you do a good job and you don't burn it, you almost don't have to worry too much about the cleanup because they're going to eat every bit of it.
Fair.
So as long as it's not too sticky and it's not burnt, your chances are all right. You got to make sure you have enough. You got to make sure you have enough butter. If you have enough butter,
okay. I was gonna say I'm eyeing you suspiciously here.
Well, keep in mind you don't have that much real cheese, so
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Elena says it's heavy, but for car camping, mini raviolis for the will. Is that like the Chef Boyardee can? Jake asks, do you guys let your dehydrated meals sit in water for 20 minutes before starting to cook them? I have found the meals come back better with letting it sit before cooking for 20 minutes or so. I can see the logic to that. I could see the logic to that. What do you think?
I was going to say it depends on what it is, but in general, giving it time to rehydrate is a good idea. You certainly don't want to be cooking it while it's still dehydrated. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The more time and letting it sit. Letting it sit and sometimes mixing is also important to making sure that the water actually gets back into everything it has to get back into.
Yep. Absolutely. Alain says yes, it's the Chef Boyardee he's talking about. Russell says, who cares if the cheese is stuck to the pot? You'll get cheese in the next meal and the one after that too, hopefully.
And the ants and the chipmunks will appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, that's the problem, really. I mean, if you want to control your critter issue, you have to end up with a relatively clean pot. So,
Russell, I come with my own blanket. He says, someone throw a blanket over just before it's too late. This is a cold as basement.
Oh, so I thought we would throw the blanket over him after he was done.
Yeah, throw a blanket over me. I'm done. It's funny because a lot of technology has gone into meals for camping. And I feel that all that technology and marketing and stuff has just gone into marketing what we can already do. Right? Making it less work for us to dry our meals. Yeah, okay, it's freeze dried. Yeah, I get it. But Mountain House isn't doing anything that I can't do myself if I'm willing to put in the work. So, in a time equals money world, which is better? Freeze drying a crap load of spaghetti sauce and then boiling up noodles, or buying a Mountain House meal? Saying this as someone who doesn't feel the need to buy a bunch of Mountain House pap when he goes into the woods. It's just like, does the effort required to create a week's worth of dried food
in a way,
if we're doing that?
In a way, I think you sort of can answer this question on a personal basis. And what I mean by that is some people have more money than time, and some people have more time than money.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. And on that basis, you can make your decisions.
Yep. I could see that.
Or just out of interest. I mean, you can dehydrate all sorts of things, and maybe it doesn't come back particularly well or tasty, but it's still edible, and you get better at it. You figure out what you change and you tweak, and sooner or later, hopefully, you end up with a good product. I mean, I think the advantage, and I don't necessarily mean Mountain House, but if you think about the many vendors of camping food.
Yeah, I was just pulling Mountain House out of the ether because they're like the big name.
They do this experimentation for you.
Mm-hmm.
They try to find a way to get a good result. And I mean, it's pretty expensive, but I think it's pretty expensive because they put that effort in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying, I'm not dissing the Mountain House thing. I'm just, we live in a world where there are companies completely geared towards taking out another chunk of effort from our lives. I keep coming back to that sort of Tales from the Green Valley where, they were put on a farm from like 1450, not allowed to use any technology later than the mid 1400s, and they had to do a year.
I'm gonna say I have some vague recollection of miserable people assembling and disassembling metal beds to try to get them clean. what have you. But that might have been a later period version.
That might have been the Victorian one. It was the same.
Yeah.
It was the same sort of. They did Chess on the Green Valley, and then it did so well that they did like Victorian this. They did Edwardian Pharmacy. Blah blah blah. But we have gone from a world where if you wanted to make plaster, you had to mine the limestone. I don't know what goes into plaster, but like you had to get a stick or manufacture a shovel, which meant knowing how to blacksmith, which like you from doing A to Z yourself very quickly to this guy makes copper axes, so I'm gonna give him some of my fish or something for a copper axe. You know what I'm saying? Like
the model of our economy is specialization.
Yeah, and like then there's a miller, so we don't have to mill our own, grain. There's a shoemaker. There's a blacksmith. There's a
and you're right. That's a great contrast to a time when civilization was expanding and generalist skills were very valuable because you were on your own and you had to do it for yourself.
Yeah. And here we are in the 21st century, yawning into the mic. Sorry, guys. And here we are in the 21st century where we're surrounded by companies that will take our dollars in return for ease of use. Right? We're surrounded by a Mountain House and a McDonald's and a Tim Hortons and a Starbucks and all that stuff. And I'm a guy who wants to make his own lattes. I like the machines with the piston on them. I can't afford one right now. But, I like there to be some pageantry to the latte I put on the counter for my wife. I like there to be some effort into getting the fire started. This is the reason I don't squirt a bunch of that gas-based crap all over a bunch of briquettes or something, right? This is why I start a fire with a flint and steel, which is amazing, or a ferro rod, which is fine.
Well, I think we've established that you're a romantic in this traditionalist sort of way.
Yeah, Martin called me that, and
you haven't disagreed. You've sort of grudgingly accepted. I think that's reasonable.
If the shoe fits, I'll wear it. I don't like the term, but I have no reason to argue the point. And there are a lot of people who. Here's a perfect example. I've said to you guys before that I use a mocha pot to make my wife's coffee in the morning. And I fill it with hot water, and then I do the grounds. Like I ground up the grounds, and I put them in, and I put it on at 8.5. And then once the coffee starts coming out, I turn it down to 7.5. And then as soon as it starts to spit, I take it off, rinse the boiler in cold water so that it stops boiling, and then make her coffee. This is the way these pots are supposed to be used. It gives you a coffee with no bitterness. I used to work with a guy who made his coffee every morning in a mocha pot. He would use cold water, fill it full of at least freshly ground beans, put it on high. Then when it spits, he takes it off, makes his coffee, pours it into a cup and drinks it. Doesn't care about the bitterness because all he wants is to get that sort of, I'm awake.
Chacun a son goût.
Absolutely. Absolument. C'est ça. But because he was just getting caffeine in for his morning fix. I'm doing it for my wife, so I want to do it as well as I can. And I enjoy that kind of process. But there can be
great enjoyment in the ritual. Yes.
I like the ritual. I do. I like the ritual when it comes to starting a campfire. I like the ritual when it comes to...
I have to say, I do get a special satisfaction out of making a palatable meal on the campfire.
Yeah.
There is something to that.
It's even better than using your kitchen, right? Because if you get a palatable meal from a campfire, you have accomplished something. That's not a barbecue. It's a campfire. It's not a gas grill.
And it's a process. You planned it, you packed it, carried it, you kept it from getting too hot or too cold, as the case may be, in transit. And now you've
Yep.
cooked it, and your plan has come to fruition. And if it turned out well, you're eating it and you're enjoying it.
And there's magic to that, right? There's absolute magic to that. There's enjoyment, there's accomplishment. You know, when I'm in my own kitchen, surrounded by 90-degree angles and urban stink, I don't have a problem with the mod cons. I like to make my coffee the way I just told you. If we had an espresso maker, I would want one with the manual piston. My wife disagrees massively. She has a very specific one that she wants, so we'll get the one she wants at some point. But but I don't. When I'm in the woods, I go further. I go further. I don't want to use a lighter. I have a lighter and I have matches because at the end of the day, you need to get a fire lit. You need to get a fire lit. So if I'm really having a hard time, I'll go to that. But I like to go even further manual, even further sort of old school, even further romantic. It bugs me, but I'm going to accept it. For the same reason, if I'm preparing meals either to freeze dry for camping or not, I'm not using a garlic press. I'm chopping my garlic with a knife. I that's just the way I like to do it. I think that with a knife, whether you're in the woods or in the kitchen, with a good knife, there are a lot of tools that you can get away with not having. I would, when I'm in the woods, I do keep a very specific food prep knife, right? But I mean,
an ever expanding fraction of the chat, by the way, is noting that you and I are beginning to look somewhat fatigued.
Because we are, dude. The sun is up behind you. Okay, you are super freaking human.
No, I just don't do mornings.
I used to be one of those guys who would go to bed as the sun was starting to come up. Like I would hear the birds starting to wake up and think, "Oh, I better go to bed." Oh man, I messed up.
However, I've turned a corner, at least for this year, which is to say that now that my Toronto Maple Leafs have managed to fail dismally, as they always do, I have no reason to stay up late now, except for the Rain Dance Bushcraft live stream.
Well, thank you. I was going to say that I didn't even know the Canadians won that because there was no riot in this town.
I think there was a small celebration. But,
yeah. But they didn't burn down the downtown core, so it's like it wasn't a real serious.
Yeah, well, they're into the second round with Winnipeg now, so if they manage to get to the third or fourth, maybe you're getting to riot-worthy territory.
There'll be a riot at some point. Jake says, I like my wife who food preps for us. She'll put the instructions on all the ingredients in one vacuum sealed pouch, so when we open it, it's all ready to go with instructions in case I cook it. I like it.
Prepared with affection. Always nice.
There's been a conversation about butter versus margarine. Sandsock says it's not that margarine is better than butter, but it packs okay. Good night, Alain. And I'm not sure, but how does margarine pack better than butter? Does it last longer?
Well, there's a wide range of products in terms of their semi-solidity, but as you'll see by the comment from Mark, I mean, people who are concerned about hydrogenation, etc., do not.
You mean this comment here?
It's a little further. Margarine never, he says, something along those lines.
Okay, right.
It's people who are very concerned about those things obviously don't accept margarine as an option.
Yeah, I get that. I get
something like ghee, which has clarified butter, which does not require refrigeration, is a nice solution. If you really don't like those hybrid hydrogenated whatever products.
Well, and here's the thing, we have margarine in the house because we have a daughter who has we're working her through a milk allergy. But like we have so many products that I would never have bought because she had an egg allergy and a milk allergy. We've worked her through the egg allergy in conjunction with the Montreal Children's Hospital, which has been a fantastic crew to work with. But we're still working her through the butter allergy, through the egg. Can I start that whole sentence again, please? Yeah.
Milk protein.
We're working her through the milk-based item allergy. She can have yogurt. She has a bit of yogurt every day. At first it was cheese, and she can eat cheese. In June, mid-June, I have to take her back, and we're testing her on like an actual glass of milk, which is terrifying because some actual milk was what sent us to the hospital. Not in the first case, because the first case was eggs. But like we're getting her through this. But we have things like butter in the house, which I would never have accepted before. We have oat milk in the house, which I would never have accepted before. And now, because I have this stupid health problem I'm working through, I'm drinking oat milk too. But.
Well, at least you've come to it at the right time. It's a lot better than it used to be. There are very good oat milk products now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But as bushcrafters and campers, I feel that we're a crew that wants to use bacon fat and butter and lard. Because if it was good enough for Nesmuk, it's good enough for us. If it was good enough for Dick Prenicky, it's good enough for us. If it was good for...
I was going to say, as Sandsock points out in the chat, olive oil is very versatile and a great thing to carry.
Yep, absolutely.
Coconut oil is as well, although it has a bit of a flavor, so maybe it doesn't go with everything. But
yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Man, I'm behind on the side chat. Sorry, guys. Now, here's the thing Sandsock says. This is what you're referring to, right? I could use nothing but olive oil to cook, put in a small Nalgene bottle. You really just need it to add calories to the menu. The reason I use olive oil for things like salads and blah, and blah, and blah, but when I'm cooking, I use canola, is because the smoke point of olive oil is much lower. But on a campfire, like, does it get hot enough to hit the smoke point of olive oil, do you think? I mean, it kind of depends on the fire you made, right?
Depends on your degree of control. I think you generally don't want it that hot. Especially unless you're using cast iron, I don't think that most anodized aluminum or titanium cookwares are going to react well to getting things that hot anyways.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hence my love of cast iron when I'm in the woods. And my love of whiskey at any time.
Where'd I
go? Wait, I just noticed something else from Sandsock. Something on my bucket list to cook. I like to do a crawfish boil.
Oh, yeah.
Caught from a lake in a bait trap.
I've never done seafood, just to say not fish, but I think that would be fun. You could definitely do it on the first night. There's no reason you couldn't. You couldn't bring it if you can't catch it, obviously.
I have this, I have a similar bucket list to Sandsock in that I would love to catch a bunch of crayfish and cook them for my wife over a campfire. I saw this Ray Mears video where he caught a bunch of American crayfish, which are an invasive species over there, the ones with the claws. Did you see that one?
I think so, yeah.
Man, when I saw that video, I was like, I am doing this for herself, the missus. I'm dying to, because it's so simple, right? So simple, and she's very into stuff like that. Her family is Gaspesian. Well, the part that's Quebecois is Gaspésian, right? So a lot of whatever the hell homard is in English, they're like crawfish but really big.
Okay.
Lobster, lobster.
Lobster or langoustine, somewhere in
No,
between.
lobster. Yeah, a lot of lobster, a lot of
Oh,
shellfish, a lot of
homard. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Gotcha.
homard. Gaspésian food is seafood essentially, right? I mean, they're sticking out there into the deep water. So she eats a lot of that stuff. So it's like when I saw that video, I was like, I would love to make this for her. At some point, the same way I would love to make gravlax at some point, like the real way, the Swedish way. But I fear touching a salmon.
Then it's probably not for you.
you know, yeah,
Best meal I think I've ever made on a campfire was pasta with tomato sauce, Italian sausage, and bell peppers, with Parmesan cheese and some red wine. First night of a trip, Rock Lake with my wife, so easy to have everything fresh. And
okay, but there's value to starting your trip with a really good meal, though, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's value to packing along a bunch of fresh stuff as a way of kicking off your trip.
Of course.
Well,
and I think the eating part is part of what's special. It's part of the memories. It's part of the enjoyment. I mean, there's no reason it should feel like it's not fun or tasty.
Yeah. Martin says, if there's flame, you'll get to that smoke point, which is true. I never cook over flame if I can possibly avoid it. You shouldn't be cooking over flame, but merely on coals or embers. Yeah, and I feel that's where the heat is best for cooking as well.
And there's a related discussion here, which is fire building for cooking, or even fireplace building for cooking. All those things you have to do to create a setup that you can get that even heat, so you can do a good job.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, for me means bringing a grill. I mean, I don't know how people do meal prep and not have a grill with them to stick their pot on if they're not cooking.
Oh, you mean like one of those things that's like not a mesh, but like rods, whatever.
Yep, a grid of metal bars.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a grill.
That a pot can sit on above where there was a flame, and perhaps now there is embers.
Yeah, I have a grill that I bring as well. It was on the affordable side, so over time it has warped because of the heat of the embers and stuff. But we can't all afford the Joe Robinette grill at whatever it is, $40 US or something.
That doesn't have to be that one. I mean, it could be any old thing you can find, of course. The one that I have is actually a replacement part for a barbecue grill, and it's porcelain coated, which means it's easy, fragile, but also very easy to clean. So if you take good care of that, that's very nice.
Yeah. Mark says the best camping meal I had was a Yadda native fellow who offered us a freshly caught steelhead salmon. We invited him to join us, did a potluck on the beach, limes, onions, rice, wine, potatoes. See, Martin and I talk about this a lot, because we have something similar in that neither of us can really eat a lot of fish. But I wish I could. I wish I could, because I've only had salmon once or twice way back before I went to the hospital because of it, as a much younger person. And I do feel that I'm missing out, because what Mark is saying here sounds amazing to me.
That sounds very nice.
Especially because as someone who BC is like my old stomping grounds, there's a magic on that coast, right? Like when as soon as he said Yadda, I saw, coast mist, right? Like not coast right into the ocean, but coast with a bunch of islands up around where Haida is and everything. So there's a mist there, and I can still smell that land.
I lived in Victoria for a little over a year, and there was a lot of fresh salmon in my life. and it was good.
Yeah, and I can't do it, and I wish I could, because it's a beautiful looking fish. Like, if you cut one, the flesh of it is gorgeous. Just
I mean,
I wish I could.
my absolute favorite is the king salmon.
The king salmon,
It is fantastic.
right? Sandsock says, I want a Purcell grill. I don't know them.
Purcell Trench. They make a very nice, lightweight, high quality camping grill. Canadian product from, I think, Alberta or BC, not sure which. I think it's Purcell, BC. So Purcell Trench.
So it's named after. Okay.
Named after a place. That's the name of the company. Nice stuff.
I'm pretty sure that Simo is already finding us a URL.
Simon might be a little off his game though, because it is after I guess 11 where you are, 5 where I am.
Oh my land, we're done. Oh wow, that took like no time. Okay, guys. Well, it's bedtime here in Montreal. It's waking up time where Tenenbaum is. Maybe he'll take a nap or something.
The birds are singing. No, I think
the birds are singing.
I think I'll go to bed now.
Yeah. So for everyone else who's been in there, I just wanted to say that Martin said that some people cook their pasta at home, then dehydrate and rehydrate in the bush. Reduces cooking time considerably. That is a really cool hack, in my opinion.
It's an option. Changes the texture a little, but depending on what kind of pasta, it's good. Something that's really thick and heavy, like penne rigate, good move.
Okay. Good to know. I'm going to take note of that. And Simon does pull through. Purcelltrench.com grills. I'm going to take a look at those, because, as I said, my grill has gotten completely warped. Are we talking about like a lot of money though?
Not cheap, but as good quality as you'll find, and ultra light. I mean, good stuff. Okay. I think probably not cheap. That's my recollection.
Oh, I've seen these before. I know exactly what these are. Okay. Yeah.
And not large either. I mean, this is a better small group product than if you had 9 people.
Right. Okay, so we're at 23:07. So we're gonna cut it short here. To everyone who's hung out in the side chat, and to Mr. Tenenbaum, who has stayed up way late Swedish time to hang with us. Thanks a lot. See you next time.
Jess.
Pas de problème.
Pas problem. We're speaking different languages.
By the way, I started learning that language again thanks to the magic of
Duolingo.
Duolingo, yes. So to everyone in the side chat, thanks for hanging out with us. To everyone who's going to hang out with us, time shifted to tomorrow, thank you as well. To Tenenbaum, thanks a lot. To some of you guys who have kept the side chat really bubbling, thanks a lot. Between now and next week, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, and be kind to one another. Good night, all.